The apex of the Drea military chain of command is occupied by Matriarch Luria, immediately followed by Commander-in-Chief General Manza. Residing in the Drea capital of Lurnazan, General Manza's centralized military apparatus, known as the High Command, distributes operational directives to the garrison commands stationed across various Drea cities. The commanders of the garrisons in the cities of Drevazan, Manazan, Sat, and Grazal, titled as Castellans, form the localized pillars of this command chain. Castellans are tasked with relaying the High Command's mandates to field personnel, enforcing these decisions on the ground, and maintaining the absolute operationality of the garrison. Beneath the Castellans, the High Lieutenants act as the operational bridge, translating grand strategy into actionable battlefield tactics. The Silver Captains are the commissioned officers who actively manage and direct the entirety of the garrison's military inventory and troops on the field. The orders of the Silver Captains are transmitted to the sergeants to guide all Drea personnel clashing on the front lines. Sergeants are the battle-hardened, courageous military elements who fight directly alongside the infantry, managing the frontline troops in compact, highly disciplined squads of 10 to 20 individuals. Viewing the system horizontally, other specialized ranks emerge. Quartermasters, possessing a rank equivalent to Silver Captains, are the logistics masters of the garrison. However, the quartermaster officers operating within the garrisons, managed by Castellans, report directly to the High Command, meaning General Manza, and ultimately Matriarch Luria. This bypass of the local chain of command is a deliberate paranoid detail embedded within Luria's military reform initiative, designed to ensure no Castellan can ever supply a rebellion without the Crown's immediate knowledge. Overseer officers command the Arcane class within the military and hold a rank equivalent to a Silver Captain. Overseers cannot command standard infantry, but they possess authority over squads composed entirely of mages. The distinct units managed by Overseers and Silver Captains are the two forces that maintain the closest tactical coordination on the battlefield. Additionally, Drea officers operating with the title of Field Surgeon hold a rank equivalent to a sergeant, directing and controlling the medical triage units deployed directly into the chaos of the battlefield. Communication. To transmit any tactical directive or strategic decision to the distant garrisons, the High Command utilizes a heavily fortified relay network known as the Arcane Towers. These monolithic structures are strategically positioned across all Drea territories, with exactly one highly secure Arcane Tower anchoring each city. Specialized practitioners of the arcane arts are permanently stationed within these high-altitude sanctums. When the High Command intends to broadcast a mandate, whether targeting a specific localized garrison or mobilizing the entire military apparatus, the raw data is first encrypted using the runoglyph cipher, a complex cryptographic alphabet engineered exclusively by the Drea military. The designated Tower Mage then channels this written data, projecting it into the upper atmosphere as a precise sequence of arcane detonations and luminescent flares, designed to pierce through any atmospheric interference or cloud cover. These celestial flashes are continuously monitored by the arcane-enhanced ocular instruments of neighboring towers. By tracking the exact rhythm, duration, and succession of the ignition and extinguishment intervals, the directive is seamlessly relayed from one city to the next across the mainland. For any enemy force to successfully intercept and decipher this skybound command, they would need to conquer a dual impossibility. First, comprehending the mathematical intervals of the arcane sequence, and second, possessing the highly classified linguistic key to the runoglyph cipher. Phalanx. The Drea military dons uniform plate armor forged from charcoal-colored steel, accented with sparse silver filigree. The colors remain drab and faded, with helmets engineered to completely obscure the face. For a Drea soldier is not an individual, but a brick in a wall of flesh. The Phalanx units, the backbone of the heavy infantry, utilize a full-body tower shield and a heavy metal pike. As the most numerous element of the military, they operate through rigid battlefield formations. In the primary Drea wall maneuver, the front rank anchors their shields into the earth using specialized iron spikes, while the middle rank acts as a dynamic brace, expanding and reinforcing the barrier to withstand massive kinetic impact. The rear rank serves as the offensive engine, thrusting their pikes through the gaps in the shield wall with mechanical precision. On any given battlefield, multiple Drea walls can be seen operating in perfect synchronization. The genesis of the Drea Phalanx was a direct strategic response to the dual threats of the Seram and Rawaka forces. It was engineered as a tactical countermeasure against the Rawaka hive swarms, whose infantry attacks like an inexhaustible tide. By maintaining a high-density formation, the Phalanx prevents the insectoid Rawaka from utilizing their numbers to flank or overrun the line. Furthermore, this formation has proven capable of neutralizing the Seram Empire's renowned cavalry charges with minimal casualties, as the anchored pikes effectively transform the infantry line into a lethal forest of steel. On the field, Phalanx units coordinate closely with the Silverwings, Drea's own specialized heavy cavalry who execute flanking maneuvers once the Phalanx has successfully pinned the enemy in place. Culler. Considered a more mobile, heavy infantry variant of the Drea Phalanx, the Culler units are highly agile swordmasters who wield dual short swords with lethal efficiency. While they don the same charcoal-colored steel as the Phalanx, their plating is strategically segmented at the joints, sacrificing rigid defense for crucial rotational mobility and speed. Operating in specialized, tight-knit squads, the Cullers are primarily deployed as the ultimate failsafe for the infantry line. When relentless enemy forces manage to breach the vanguard or slip into the vulnerable rear echelon of the Phalanx units anchoring the Drea wall, the Cullers are tasked with systematically eliminating the intruders. In the claustrophobic, chaotic crush immediately behind the shield wall, their dual short swords provide a devastating tactical advantage, executing rapid butchery where the long pikes of the Phalanx would be entirely useless and cumbersome. Kallatir archers. The Drea Archer Corps is categorized into three distinct operational variants: standard, raincallers, and long range. The standard Kallatir units wield short bows, forged not from wood, but from a proprietary alloy known as Kallatir, a metal significantly lighter than iron, yet engineered to possess immense tensile flexibility. They fire slender, solid metal arrows. The effective range of these standard archers is strictly tactical, positioned just behind the vanguard to provide immediate, close support volleys directly over the heads of the Drea infantry. In contrast to the heavy plate of the Phalanx, their armor is crafted from hardened leather. This deliberate lack of heavy plating grants them vital, instantaneous mobility to reposition or retreat if their firing lines are breached by the enemy. For desperate close-quarters survival, each standard archer is equipped with 2 iron daggers. The Raincaller archers operate with heavy, oversized wooden bows akin to great bows, firing thick wooden shafts. Unlike the standard infantry archers, they do not march behind the shield wall. Instead, they are stationed alongside the heavy artillery, commanding elevated vantage points atop towering field towers. They earn the moniker Raincallers because every volley they unleash is a torrential downpour of flaming arrows. Possessing visual dominance over the battlefield, these archers are not tasked with precision strikes against heavily armored targets, as incendiary payloads inherently reduce aerodynamic penetration. Instead, they operate as a devastating area denial and psychological weapon. Their primary operational directives from the field towers are to shatter enemy mobility, break troop morale with a literal rain of fire, and ruthlessly thin out the density of massive swarming infantry charges before they can even crash against the Drea wall. The third and final detachment, classified strictly as the long-range archers, operates far removed from the frontline chaos. Instead, they are stationed directly at the fortified command posts alongside the Silver Captains who orchestrate the Drea field forces. These elite marksmen wield massive great bows forged entirely from the lightweight Kallatir alloy. Due to the extreme draw weight required to bend these oversized metal weapons, the archers must possess exceptional physical strength, often anchoring the lower limb of the bow to the earth to stabilize their aim. Rather than firing blindly into the enemy masses, they are tasked with executing precision tactical strikes from extreme distances. By targeting enemy officers, severing the critical ropes of hostile siege engines, or eliminating high-value monstrous units, their hyper-accurate volleys serve as the vital catalyst for executing broader strategic maneuvers. In essence, they act as the Silver Captain's longest and deadliest arm on the battlefield, dismantling enemy strategy before it can even unfold. Silver Wing Cavalry. The Silver Wings constitute the elite heavy cavalry of the Drea Kingdom. Forgoing any semblance of light mobility, both the riders and their massive warhorses are entirely encased in overlapping plates of heavy charcoal steel. Operating as the devastating mobile core of the Drea war machine, the Silver Wings are divided into two distinct operational variants, each tailored for a specific phase of carnage. The first variant is the Lancer, the pure shock cavalry. Wielding extended heavy lances, their sole operational directive is unadulterated offense. Utilizing the sheer kinetic mass and terrifying momentum of their armored warhorses, they are deployed exclusively as line breakers. Their primary objective is to execute a devastating frontal or flank charge, utilizing the concentrated force of their lancers to shatter and trample enemy vanguard formations before the opposition can even brace for impact. The second variant is the melee cavalry, equipped with heavy broadswords and steel shields. Unlike the lancers who rely on a singular, explosive charge, these riders are tasked with systematic butchery. They operate in a deadly symbiosis with the Phalanx infantry. When relentless enemy swarms crash against the impenetrable Drea wall and their forward momentum is completely neutralized, the sword-wielding Silver Wings are unleashed. Executing textbook hammer and anvil maneuvers, they sweep into the exposed flanks of the bogged-down enemy. From their elevated armored saddles, they effortlessly hack down the trapped and exhausted infantry, serving as the lethal hammer striking against the Drea anvil. Artillery and siege engineers. The Drea military's siege doctrine relies upon two primary engines of destruction: heavy catapult batteries and colossal siege towers. The siege towers are towering behemoths, heavily reinforced with thick, overlapping iron plating to withstand defensive artillery fire as they slowly advance. Unlike traditional siege doctrines that pack these structures with standard shield-bearing infantry, the Drea High Command predominantly loads them with Culler units. Once the heavy iron ramp slams onto the enemy battlements, the dual-wielding Cullers violently pour out. In the claustrophobic, chaotic crush of the wall ramparts, their segmented armor and rapid, close-quarters blamework make them the absolute perfect shock troops to butcher the defenders and secure the breach. Operating far behind the vanguard, the Drea catapults are completely unarmored, sacrificing defensive weight to maximize mechanical tension, firing range, and mobility. These siege engines deploy two distinct types of payload. The standard munition consists of massive, dense stone boulders, engineered solely to shatter fortress walls and crush enemy formations through sheer, blunt, kinetic trauma. The second, far more terrifying payload is the incendiary variant, officially designated within Drea logistics as pyre cores. These are not mere balls of fire. They are specialized, hollowed iron casks packed with a highly volatile alchemical pitch. Ignited just before launch, a pyre core detonates violently upon impact, engulfing enemy fortifications, siege engines, and troop morale in an unquenchable, clinging sea of flame. Field surgeons. The medical doctrine of the Drea military is utterly devoid of compassion or sanctuary. Operating under the chilling title of field surgeons or flesh menders among the enlisted, these officers are not healers trained to comfort the wounded. They are ruthless, pragmatic butchers engineered to rapidly patch a bleeding soldier, flood their system with harsh alchemical stimulants, and violently shove a sword back into their hands to return to the vanguard. Positioned strictly behind the secondary reserve lines, they never break the formation of the Drea wall to rescue the fallen. Instead, as the heavy infantry advances, specialized, lightly armored units known as draggers haul the bleeding masses out of the mud and drag them back to the medical encampments. These triage centers do not resemble hospitals. They are massive, soot-stained canvas pavilions that operate with the grim efficiency of a slaughterhouse. Inside, there are no beds for recovery, only rows of cold, rusted iron slabs, surrounded by vats of boiling pitch and searing irons used for instantaneous cauterization. The air is permanently thick with the suffocating stench of burned flesh, alchemical fumes, and iron. Within these dismal tents, every wounded soldier is subjected to a terrifyingly rapid, cold calculation. If a soldier is deemed structurally sound enough to hold a weapon, they are brutally stitched, cauterized without anesthetic, and immediately expelled back to the front lines. However, if the physical trauma is too severe, if a soldier is rendered permanently crippled and deemed a waste of state resources, the medical procedure abruptly shifts to a bureaucratic one. The field surgeon ceases to be a medic and becomes an executioner. The unpayable blood debt of the shattered soldier is practically collected right there on the iron slab. With a swift, mechanical slit to the throat, the surgeon euthanizes the useless asset, meticulously detaching the soldier's sealed blood file from their armor. This bloody token is then catalogued and shipped back to the Lernesen archives, officially closing the dead soldier's account with the Silver Throne. Arcane mages. The arcane practitioners of the Drea military operate under a strictly segregated command structure. They are not commanded by standard silver captains, but answer exclusively to the overseers. Driven by matriarch Luria's sweeping state reforms, the study of magic was stripped of its academic romance and entirely militarized into a pure, arcane-focused combat doctrine. Forged within the unforgiving walls of the arcane crucible, Drea battle mages are uniform in their brutal indoctrination, constantly forced to push the absolute boundaries of arcane teachings. Deployed across the battlefield with lethal strategic flexibility, these specialized units are referred to by operational monikers: beacons, bombardiers, and the Bright Force. While some squads unleash artillery-grade arcane detonations to supplement the Drea catapult batteries, and others embed with the archer squads, the vast majority are deployed directly behind the infantry to execute rapid offensives and project magical defense. The destructive arts hammered into them by the arcane crucible are highly standardized, heavily regulated, and mechanically controlled executions. For long-range, wide-area devastation, the bombardiers employ the barrage doctrine. Operating in synchronized pairs, the mages form an alternating front rank and rear rank. Acting as living artillery, the front rank unleashes a flattening volley of raw kinetic force until their physical and mental stamina wanes. Seamlessly, the rear rank steps forward to sustain the bombardment, while the front rank recovers. This relentless rotational shift system continues until both ranks are entirely drained. Given the catastrophic toll channeling raw arcane energy takes on their cognitive focus and mental endurance, a standard barrage squad reaches total arcane burnout in approximately 15 minutes, a terrifyingly long duration for sustained magical bombardment. The mages providing direct close-quarters support to the Drea heavy infantry operate under the interval doctrine. To avoid rapid burnout while neutralizing frontline targets, they utilize highly efficient, low-drain kinetic blasts. Executing textbook combat rotations, these battle mages weave seamless intervals between spellcasting and physical melee strikes. Their specialized staves are forged from the lightweight Kallatir metal and capped with a razor-sharp iron blade, effectively transforming their channeling foci into lethal polearms. While normally an offensive vanguard element, shifting battlefield conditions can prompt them to instantly pivot to the barrier doctrine, projecting temporary but impenetrable kinetic shields to protect the infantry lines. Finally, the squads operating as beacons alongside the Callatir archers dedicate their absolute focus to the marking and defensive barrier doctrines. Through precise arcane targeting, they mark hostile forces. This specialized kinetic signature aggressively alters the gravitational pressure around the targets, severely crippling their physical mobility and rendering them sluggish, defenseless prey for the incoming volleys of Drea arrows. Doctrines of the Silver Throne. The strategic vision of the Drea military is entirely devoid of martial romanticism. It is a cold machine engineered by the High Command to solve two geopolitical nightmares: the inexhaustible, swarming tides of the insectoid Rawaka hive and the devastating heavy cavalry and siege supremacy of the Seram Empire. To ensure the survival of the kingdom, General Manza structured the Drea field forces around two inflexible tactical doctrines. The Drea do not fight to conquer through individual heroism. They fight to systematically grind their enemies into ash through impenetrable formations and unit synergy. The Aegis Protocol. The Rawaka hive attacks with sheer, suffocating volume. A traditional military would be rapidly flanked, exhausted, and devoured by the endless insectoid tide. To counter this, Drea executes the Aegis Protocol, a doctrine of attrition and area denial. The Searing Horizon. Before the Rawaka swarm even reaches the infantry, the Raincaller archers atop the field towers unleash a relentless deluge of fiery arrows, while the catapult batteries launch pyre cores. This creates massive, impassable zones of clinging fire, artificially funneling the mindless insectoid masses into concentrated kill zones. The Unbreakable Anvil. The heavy Phalanx units lock their tower shields and anchor their iron spikes into the earth, forming the primary Drea wall. Directly behind them, the Arcane Bright Force projects shimmering barriers of pure kinetic force, perfectly absorbing the catastrophic physical impact of thousands of insectoid bodies crashing against the steel. The meat grinder. As the Rawaka pile up against the kinetic and iron wall, the Phalanx rear ranks rhythmically thrust their pikes through the gaps. Should any agile hive warriors manage to vault over the shield wall or slip through a temporary fracture, the dual-wielding Culler units waiting in the shadows immediately butcher them, ensuring the vanguard never collapses from the inside. The kinetic trap protocol. The Seram Empire wages war through overwhelming momentum, utilizing long-range siege bombardment and the terrifying charge of their heavy desert cavalry. To defeat Seram, Drea does not attempt to outrun them. They execute the kinetic trap, a doctrine designed to arrest momentum and execute trapped targets. Counter-siege precision. To neutralize Seram's superior siege engines, Drea does not rely solely on its own catapults. Instead, the long-range Kallatir archers and the Arcane bombardiers execute synchronized, high-priority strikes, while bombardiers hurl raw kinetic detonations to shatter Seram trebuchets. The long-range marksmen snipe the enemy siege engineers and field commanders from extreme distances, blinding the Seram offensive before it deploys. Arresting the storm. When the Seram cavalry initiates its legendary charge, the arcane beacons manipulate localized gravitational pressure to severely drag and sluggish the incoming horses. The Drea Phalanx then braces for impact, transforming the vanguard into a static, lethal forest of anchored iron pikes designed to impale charging mounts and stop their momentum dead in the mud. The Iron Hammer. The brilliance of the Drea doctrine manifests once the Seram cavalry charge is bogged down against the Drea wall. Stripped of their speed, the Seram riders are highly vulnerable. At this precise moment, Drea's own Silverwing melee cavalry is deployed from the flanks. Executing a hammer and anvil maneuver, the Silverwings sweep into the stalled Seram forces, easily hacking down the trapped riders and turning the Seram offensive into a mass grave. Through these two overarching doctrines, the Drea military stands as an emotionless, perfectly calibrated engine of death, capable of neutralizing both the chaotic swarms of the West and the elite conquerors of the East. Logistics. The logistics network of the Drea military, overseen with draconian efficiency by the quartermasters, is not founded upon compassion or the welfare of the troops. It is built entirely upon an absolute intolerance for waste and the enforcement of unyielding obedience. A garrison commander, a castellan, may possess the authority to order an offensive, but it is the quartermaster, the embedded agent of the Silver Throne, who dictates whether that army has the fuel to swing its swords. Drea infantrymen do not consume warm meals, nor are they permitted the luxury of feasts or flavorful provisions. A soldier's body is merely a biological engine, and an engine requires only fuel. Stored within the heavily guarded granaries of the quartermasters are alchemical rations, tasteless, rock-hard, yet incredibly calorie-dense blocks engineered by Drea alchemists. These rations are deliberately laced with mild alchemical stimulants designed to artificially spike battlefield aggression and numb physical fatigue. Should a quartermaster deem a specific infantry company to be underperforming, they hold the unilateral authority to dilute the stimulant ratio in their rations. This insidious control mechanism cements the soldier's obedience to the Silver Throne through the primal fear of starvation and exhaustion. The vital supply routes connecting the colossal foundries of Linazan to the distant border garrisons such as Drevazan and Manazan are designated in Drea military literature as the Iron Arteries. Quartermasters command these heavily fortified lifelines. Supply convoys do not rely on frail horses or mules. They consist of massive, fully armored, spell-resistant wagons pulled by chained, subjugated heavy-load beasts, and prior to the rebellion, enslaved golems. For a quartermaster, a convoy's delay is never excused by harsh weather or enemy ambushes. The logistics must flow. If a convoy is late, the convoy commander pays the ultimate toll with their blood debt. Within the Drea military apparatus, absolutely nothing is wasted. Most critically, the charcoal steel armor and the Kallatir weaponry. Operating directly under the quartermasters, specialized reclamation units, colloquially known as scavengers, sweep the battlefield, immediately trailing the field surgeons. These units ruthlessly strip the armor, shields and blades from the dead and the freshly executed before their blood can even dry. The salvaged steel is hauled back to the massive garrison furnaces, where the dents are hammered out, the gore is scoured away, and the gear is reissued to a new infantryman by dawn. On a quartermaster's ledger, a Drea soldier's life is entirely expendable and easily zeroed out. But the loss of state-issued steel is a crime met with terrifying consequences. This strict logistical chain reveals the true, paranoid brilliance behind Matriarch Luria's reform, which tethered the quartermasters directly to the high command, rather than the local castellans. Consider a scenario where the castellan of Drevazan amasses too much power and plots a rebellion against Luria, successfully turning their silver captains and sergeants. Despite this localized absolute authority, the armories holding the Kallatir bows, the maintenance forges, and the vital granaries remain sealed behind the quartermaster's unyielding locks. The moment the quartermaster receives the classified treason directive from the High Command, likely transmitted via the skybound flashes of the Arcane towers, they simply lock down the infrastructure. Without firing a single arrow, the Castellan's massive army starves, fractures, and collapses upon itself before a single sword can be drawn against the crown. The quartermasters are the ultimate silent assassins of Luria's paranoid statecraft. They do not execute with the sword. They butcher through seals, starvation, and bureaucracy. The Drea Honor Guard. While the standard Drea military is forged as a faceless, uniform bulwark of charcoal steel, the Drea Honor Guard stands in terrifying contrast. Operating strictly outside the standard chain of command, they answer to no castellan, no quartermaster, and not even Commander-in-Chief General Manza. Their unbreakable allegiance is sworn directly and exclusively to Matriarch Luria. Permanently garrisoned within the impregnable walls of the Lernazan citadel, they serve as the ultimate anti-rebellion failsafe and the personal executioners of the Silver Throne. Their armor is a testament to their elite status. They don highly sophisticated, bespoke heavy plate, recognized as the absolute zenith of Drea metallurgy. Unlike the drab identical infantry, the Honor Guard's armor is a masterwork of lethal elegance, intricately etched with a blend of silver and gold filigree. Each suit bears unique, characteristic motifs, permitting these guards a terrifying degree of individuality, a privilege granted only because their personal identity has been completely overwritten by their fanatical devotion to the matriarch. In combat, they are savants of war. There is no instrument of death they cannot master. Their martial training goes far beyond standard drills. They are conditioned to intuitively deconstruct and weaponize any tool on the battlefield. Whether it is the heavy pike of the Phalanx, the dual short swords of the Cullers, a Kallatir greatbow, or a foreign Saram scimitar snatched from a fallen enemy, an honor guard adapts with instant perfection. Though their total numbers are merely a fraction of a standard military company, their presence on the battlefield is catastrophic. Forged through decades of survival and relentless combat, their tactical experience, unwavering bravery, and access to the kingdom's finest arsenal make them an unstoppable force. A single squad of the Honor Guard is more than capable of butchering their way through an entire battalion of rebellious infantry, serving as a shining, golden reminder of Luria's authority.